have been convicted of crimes. You don't think that that's what they're doing?
I think they do that sometimes, sure.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. And it's funny, you have the audacity to come in here and say that these men and women, federal law enforcement officers, are going out there abducting people because of the color of their skin.
Yes.
Yeah, that's rich, and it's pathetic, and you should be ashamed of yourself. It's funny because I got a buddy of mine who doesn't have the same color of skin that I have, who's texting me right now during this hearing, watching you. Guy worked in the Border Patrol for a long time, and he told me, he texted me, that's a slap in the face to all of us who go out there and fight against cartels and criminals each and every day. You're trying to make it about color of skin.
I thank you, and I yield back.
Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing today on how anti-law enforcement rhetoric fuels violence against officers. I want to thank you also to the panel for showing up today. I also want to point out that Mr. Goldman was just, talking to Mr. Thompson about how these agents, get up every day and they're not putting on uniforms, and then he showed several videos, and I want to point out that 90% of the law enforcement officers in those videos were, in fact, wearing uniforms. Now I want to pivot to you, Mr. Hodges. In your opening testimony today, I want to read through some of the transcript that you provided the committee. You said, "I've been on the receiving end of threats and violence due to the work I've done in the name of the law." Did you say that in your opening testimony?
Yes.
You also said in paragraph 4, law enforcement is predicated on the notion that we are a nation of laws. Did you say that as well in your opening testimony?
Yep.
And then you say on the second page, "The fact of the matter is that right now in the United States of America, there is a secret police force abducting people based on the color of their skin." Did you say that as well?
Yep.
You really believe that?
Yep.
So you don't think that our law enforcement officers are going out and trying to arrest people who are here illegally that are also have been convicted of crimes? You don't think that that's what they're doing?
I think they do that sometimes, sure.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. And it's funny because you say in your testimony that I've been on the receiving end of threats and violence due to the work I've done in the name of the law, yet you're sitting here and you're saying that these law enforcement officers, you're fueling the same rhetoric, and now people are going to come after them for that. Do you agree with that, Mr. Thompson?
100%.
Mr. Hughes? What about you, Mr. Yos?
Absolutely.
And I appreciate your service. I do. I know it's not easy to put on a badge, but I can't believe you would sit here and say that. You would complain about the treatment that you've received because of the work that you've done in the name of the law, and then you have the audacity to come in here and say that these men and women, federal law enforcement officers, are going out there abducting people because of the color of their skin?
Yes.
Yeah, that's rich, and it's pathetic, and you should be ashamed of yourself. It's funny because I got a buddy of mine who doesn't have the same color of skin that I have, who's texting me right now during this hearing, watching you. Guy worked in the Border Patrol for a long time, and he told me, he texted me, that's a slap in the face to all of us who go out there and fight against cartels and criminals each and every day. You're trying to make it about color of skin, and we all know at the end of the day, there are so many law enforcement officers, great law enforcement officers that represent all of our communities that have every color of skin out there. They pray to different gods, and they're just trying to do their job. Do you find that ironic that you're actually doing the same thing that you're complaining about in your opening statement? Is that lost on you, Mr. Hodges?
I don't understand the question.
Yeah, I figured you wouldn't. Immigration and Nationality Act. The Immigration and Nationality Act, INA, gives the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, broad authority over immigration enforcement, detention, and removal. DHS agencies like ICE, CBP, USCIS exercise powers delegated under the INA, including arresting, detaining, interrogating, and removing non-citizens who are in violation of immigration laws. That's exactly what they're doing. They are actually carrying out the laws that we pass in this country. That's pathetic, man. I want to play a video. You guys got my video? Anybody? All right. Now, obviously, we're sitting in here talking about rhetoric and how it fuels violence against officers. For you guys that represent so many officers around the country, what do you think it means to people that, are out there watching and listening, watching social media, watching the news, and they see a member of Congress who sits on this committee go out there and behave like that? Go ahead, Mr. Thompson.
I'm appalled. I'm disappointed. I believe it's beneath the dignity of this body, this committee, and membership to it. And quite honestly, I find it reprehensible, and it's obviously dangerous.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Ramirez, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Well, let me step back for a second and say that I think that today's hearing should be titled, "When Badges Become Shields, How Department of Homeland Security Agents' Violations of Our Rights Fuel Distrust and Anger." To suggest that DHS agents are professional law enforcement officers bound by the same oversight and accountability is ridiculous. You see, law enforcement officers, they go through vetting before training. But new ICE recruits are irresponsibly being accelerated from vetting to training and are only dismissed if DHS finds out about the retroactively acts on information about their failed drug tests, about their criminal backgrounds, or other requirements that they have failed. Law enforcement officers are required to wear badges. They show their faces and they identify themselves. But DHS agents, they use anonymity to terrorize our communities and to violate our rights. There are mechanisms for law enforcement officers to be held accountable by the public, investigated, and disciplined. And those mechanisms are in place for the safety of the officers and the American people. But DHS agents, they reject accountability, they disregard court orders, and they violate consent decrees. Bottom line, DHS agents lie. They act with impunity, they reject checks and balances, and they ignore Congress and the courts. The American people's anger and tolerance of DHS violations of our rights, that's what's the result of DHS unlawful, unaccountable, unconstitutional actions, which put the American people and our liberties at risk every day. Let me be very clear. The Department of Homeland Security, you can quote me on that, is the single biggest threat to public safety right now. You see, DHS agents are using chemical weapons, as you've seen already on footage, on protesters and bystanders by at least 49 times across 18 incidents in Chicago and the suburbs since October 1st. Since U.S. District Court Judge Ellis issued an order forbidding federal agents from using riot control weapons on November 6th, federal agents used chemical weapons at least 4 times later, including 2 cases where agents appeared to fire pepper spray into a moving car, possibly violating both the injunction and Border Patrol rules restricting chemical weapons used on motorists. Greg Bavino and the DHS claimed that he had been hit by a rock in the head before throwing a tear gas. But thankfully, there was video footage, and the evidence disproves it. And he ultimately admitted he was not hit until after he threw the tear gas. Look, the government alleged that Marimar Martinez used her car to assault and impede federal law enforcement. But then, federal prosecutors themselves filed a motion to dismiss their own case. Why? Because while she didn't assault the agents, they did shoot her 5 times, and then they went on and they bragged about it. And you know why rank and file agents think that they're above the law within ICE, within Department of Homeland Security? You know why? because their leadership, Kristi Noem, they think that they're above the law. DHS leadership lies. They act with impunity. They reject checks and balances, and they ignore Congress and the courts. You know, people keep asking us around the country, why is it that DHS is allowed to behave this way? Well, the truth is that DHS was intentionally established with an overbroad mission and unchecked power. And Republicans, many of them in this room right now, expanded that unaccountable power with a blank check and unlimited personnel. Why? To terrorize people, to violate their rights, because fear is the point. But nothing that DHS is doing is making us any safer, and Americans are done. We're done. We're seeing through the lie. And we're saying enough is enough, and DHS has to be held accountable, and Congress has a responsibility of oversight. It is why, Chairman, I move to subpoena Gregory Bavino to come before this committee to answer for his actions. Mr. Chair, pursuant to Clause 2K6 of Rule 11.1, I move that the committee subpoena Gregory Bavino. Also, while you're doing that, I'd like to also enter into the record a letter demanding that Kristi Noem resign, and it's an updated letter for December 3rd.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
Without objection, letter is admitted.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move to table the previous motion by Ms. Ramirez.
Gentleman moves to table the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.